Well, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the WordPress News Roundup for August 2023. Whether it's afternoon or evening or morning, wherever you happen to be logging in from, I'm really glad you've chosen to take a few minutes out of your day and spend them with me looking at the WordPress news for this month. So many things to cover this month. We're going to be pushing right at the end of the hour, I believe, to fit all these things in. Once a month, we do look across the landscape of the WordPress community and pick out the news items that we think are important for, particularly for those of us that are building and managing websites for clients using WordPress. And we have a lot of things to talk about today. If you are just joining us in the chat, in Zoom, let me invite you to open up the chat. And in there, you will find the link bundle for today, which includes the slide download. If you're watching this on the replay, you can click the download handout button that's right below the video, and you'll have these slides. These slides are particularly important because if you want to read more about any of the stories, there's a nice little link in the footer of every slide that will give you more information, the sources where we got the news stories from. So let's get started, shall we? And we begin, as we always do, with news from WordPress core. We had the release event last week for WordPress 6.3 Lionel. That was last Tuesday. It released August the 8th as scheduled. And the WordPress 6.3 release, it kind of reaches a landmark because it closes the book on phase 2 of Project Gutenberg, which is the phase 2 was focused on bringing the block editor, which was developed in phase 1, into other areas of the website, like headers and footers and sidebars and templates and things like that. And so phase 2 is now officially complete. So this release in 6.3 was mostly focused on refining those site editor improvements to where they're really very usable now. And it's quite an interesting addition to WordPress core. We'll be highlighting some of those things in just a moment. Phase 3 will begin in the new release of WordPress 6.4, phase 3 of Project Gutenberg. It's due in November 2023, and it's going to be focused on collaboration, which is really interesting, and bringing some really cool multi-user features into WordPress, like, for example, being able to edit the same page or post at the same time, which is kind of neat. Well, let's look at some of the highlights of WordPress 6.3. My favorite, perhaps, is this command palette, which is nestled right into the top of the screen and lets you do a live search for all sorts of things. But the most interesting thing about the command palette is that it's extensible, meaning that you can, developers can tap into the command palette with whatever they want to do. So this will be probably a good spot for AI plugins to tap into the admin area and do some things with AI and other things. I think you'll start to see the command palette being used by lots of different plugin developers and theme developers as we go. Something else we began to see is lots of updates to the site editor, in particular, seeing and editing patterns there in the site editor. And you can see how that works right here. Kind of neat new interface. It's a lot easier to see what you're editing and how it all works. So you get a nice grid view of those patterns right there where you can manage, add, edit, delete, those sorts of things. Also, there's the ability to edit pages and templates more easily in the site editor. Before, it was kind of hard to see if you're editing a page content or a template. And in this case, it makes it very easy to jump back and forth between those things. And it's pretty clear, especially once you use it for just a little bit, what it is you're editing. Is it the page? Is it the template? What is it? And so very good interface improvements to the site editor in that regard. We've also got the ability to have revisions to your site styling. So the revisions area, much like page and post revision, allows you to roll back the changes that you've made in the styling of your site. So using the style book, which was a new addition, or last version, I believe 6.2 introduced the style book. This lets you roll back, which is kind of nice. Another big change in 6.3 was the advent of synced patterns. This is the new name for reusable blocks. So we're really focused now on calling all of these things patterns. And there are unsynced patterns, which just live in one spot. There are synced patterns, which if you update them, it updates globally across your website. And then there'll also be, in future versions of WordPress, released partially synced patterns. which might, for example, let you have part of the pattern that stays the same, but maybe a little bit that's different that you can update throughout the site. So that development is coming, but sync patterns are now a thing. There's also a couple of new blocks that have been added to WordPress in the block editor. The first is a footnote block, which is really very usable and nice to use. It updates right down the page and just puts your footnote citations at the bottom and keeps all the numbers in order, where you just add a footnote and there it is, and it works. So really great for the types of content in WordPress that would need footnoting. We also have added to the image block the ability to change aspect ratio right there in core. So the core image block now has the ability to change the aspect, square, portrait, so forth, oval, round, which is really nice. A lot of block plugins like Kadence blocks have had this feature for a while, but now this is in the core image block, which is cool. There's also now a details block, which is sort of kind of like a mini accordion in such, like you can have this text here and you click on it and it reveals what's below it. So it's nice in different applications. You might want to have a spoiler alert or something in content where you don't want to show something until you click on the thing. And that's what the details block does. There also have been improvements to the cover block. So now you have the ability to change a lot of the text and layouts and adding duotone. And so that the cover block has continued to be iterated ever since it was released several versions ago. And it's even more powerful now than it ever has been. Something else that's really nice are improvements in the list view. It makes it a lot easier to drag and drop things in list view than it was before. Sometimes it was hard to get things to go exactly where you wanted them to go. And so some nice user interface improvements there. And last of all, there's the top toolbar, which that toolbar kind of gets in the way sometimes if you're using it in content. And so now there's the ability to push that toolbar up to the very top of the screen where you can show and hide it with these double arrows or bring it back down into text. You can do that, but this gets it completely out of the way. And I think especially if you're editing a large page, it's very helpful to, easier see what you're working with. All right, I mentioned this before, but one of the big improvements there in WordPress 6.3 is this transition to synced patterns with reusable blocks. You can now arrange blocks any way you want, save them for patterns for reuse. Patterns they've been around for a while in core WordPress, but they were really often somebody else's cloud, or you had to download them from WordPress.org. But now you can create your own patterns that live right there in your own WordPress. So that's kind of nice. And they have lots of different options for syncing and applying changes across the whole site if you change one thing. They're really powerful. And if you haven't investigated this feature yet, it's a really strong and capable addition to core WordPress. And you might see this in use, for example, if you have a client like us that might have a call to action button, like schedule an appointment or whatever, you can pull those things in as a pattern within a series of blocks or whatever. So you have that nice call to action that can just drop in wherever they'd want it. And it's a really powerful addition to core WordPress that is going to continue to be iterated on as partially synced patterns will be evolving over the next several months as well. Something else you may have noticed there are some core performance improvements with the release of WordPress 6.3. So it's been quite a while now. There has been a core performance team, a group of individuals, and all they're focused on is improving the speed of core WordPress. So WordPress 6.3 loads 27% faster if you're on a block theme and 18% faster if you're on a classic theme. So significant speed increases. A lot of this has to do with script loading strategies and database strategies. Really metadata retrieval, these sorts of things. They've really done some under the hood geek level improvements to make WordPress run faster out of the box. And that is good news. If you want to learn more about WordPress 6.3, there's the official release on the WordPress blog. And if you missed this event last week, I would highly recommend that you take a look at the event, our live stream last week, where Timothy Jacobs the lead developer for Solid WP, and he's also a core contributor and one of the maintainers of the WordPress REST API. Timothy did a great job, as he always does, of walking us through granularly all the features of WordPress 6.3 and demonstrating how those work on the screen. Here's a link to the field guide as well as the documentation page. So all those helpful links are there if you want to drill down into WordPress 6.3 and learn even more. WordPress 6.4 is moving right along. The core team is working hard on this with a general release date set for November the 7th. So thankfully, no Thanksgiving releases again this year if you're in the US. That has been a real complication for a lot of us in the US who it seems like several core releases for 2 or 3 Thanksgivings right in a row they were right around that time. So that was a challenge, and I'm grateful that it's not happening that way this time. So November 7th will be the general release, with the next one not planned. Probably, I'm going to guess February-ish of 2024. All right, let's take a look at the continuing advancements in the world of Gutenberg. Gutenberg 16.3 dropped on July the 26th. It's largely a maintenance release, a lot of bug fixes, maintenance type, just bug fixes and iterations in the UI typically tend to happen. And by the way, this is the way the Gutenberg release has always worked. There's been a bug fix release and then a features release. And sometimes there'd be features in a bug fix release, but they tend to be one or the other, and every other one is more of a fix, while the next one tends to be features. Focus mode has been added for editing your patterns. So when you're editing a template part, the interface goes in focus mode. This was not previously available, so it kind of lets you see only exactly what you're working on. So it slides in, and as you're editing a pattern, you can see, responsiveness and so forth. Really a good iteration to the pattern editor there in core WordPress. Also, there has been added a sticky header bar on patterns page. It would scroll, like you would scroll this out of view very easily before. So now this is, it stays in place here at the top, which I think is a nicer UI, to be honest. Kind of cool. You can also now more easily rename, duplicate, and edit patterns from right within the drop-down menu. You can see how that works right over here. Rename, boom, there it is. You can change the name right there. Really nice user interface improvement. Pretty cool. Gutenberg 16.4 dropped on August the 9th. And this is an interesting little addition. I haven't had time to play with this yet, but they've added this feature called auto inserting blocks, which means you can preset blocks to automatically add themselves in a particular location. So the idea is just to make it easier to develop themes and for us as developers to build sites. So for example, it's kind of hard really to see what's going on here. I expect we'll see some more iteration on this, but let's just say down here, we've got this block. So this like block, where people could maybe like a comment. This is, okay, we've changed it to, moving it up and down. It's going to automatically insert that block in that spot every time. So the idea is you can pre-program a block to show up in a certain spot every time. And again, a little hard to see from that video exactly what's going on, but I think we'll see this feature iterated more and more going forward. There's now a new progress bar component. So this progress bar allows you, well, let me just show you the video. What it's going to allow you to do is jump into your site editor, and it's going to give you your loading bar, basically. Again, this is a maintenance release. So there's also some new commands available in the command palette, which you can see some additional things happening here. That video's not working, but just additional things are being added with every release of Gutenberg to further increase the abilities of the command tool, the command bar tool. And hopefully we'll start to see some developers and plugin developers adding more functionality into it as well. More support for the footnote block. And finally, the minimum version for Gutenberg as of 16.4 has been bumped to 7.0. So that's really good. 7.0 is now the lowest version of PHP that'll be supported officially by WordPress with this latest release of WordPress 6.3 as well. All right, let's move on into some security news. As always, lots of things to talk about in the world of WordPress security. Over the course of the last month, since last we had a news roundup, there were 292 plugin vulnerabilities that have been patched. 128 are still active or the plugin has been closed. And there were 58 theme vulnerabilities. We live in a vulnerable world. That's just the way it is. And as always, we tell you, you can mitigate much of this by keeping your site secure with iTheme Security Pro. Twice a day, iTheme Security Pro looks at the themes and plugins that you have installed on your WordPress site, takes a look to see if any of those match any of the patch stack vulnerabilities that have been recorded, and will let you know if you have a vulnerable theme or plugin on your site. If you have the Pro version, you can also use the version management tool of iTheme Security Pro to automatically patch that theme or plugin if the fix has been released. So with this, a lot of times you don't have to deal with these vulnerabilities at all. They're just automatically fixed for you if the theme developer has released a patch for it. All right, speaking of critical vulnerabilities, if you're a Kadence user, you probably saw this note that Kadence Blocks 3.1.11, which is the free version of Kadence Blocks, had a critical vulnerability in regard to the advanced form block. This is a major vulnerability, and you need to make sure that your Kadence Blocks plugins across any sites you have are updated to the latest version. The exploit requires insecure server level settings. So it really showed up if you have a budget hosting provider. That's a kind way of saying El Cheapo hosting. There's no known instances of exploitation that were detected, but it is a critical vulnerability. Ben released a statement saying, immediately upon learning of this vulnerability, our team pushed out a fix. We take the security of our customer site seriously, and we make security fixes a priority. We're thankful to the responsible security researchers that responsibly disclose security vulnerabilities for the common good of all WordPress and Kadence users. And if you'd like to see the policy that the Kadence team follows with responsible security disclosures, you can read more about that at cadencewp.com/security. Ben has a good question. Is it an issue if you're not using the form? And I don't have an answer to that, but since the code lives in the plugin, I would, you want to make sure you update it anyway. So I'm not sure if the vulnerability requires a form to be on a page or not, but just make sure your blocks are up to date. Amazon security is something else that we're seeing a lot of these days. There's continued reports of hackers attacking Amazon account holders. Lots of social engineering exploits are happening to convince people more and more to give away their Amazon credentials. Kathy Zant has a great article on her blog at zant.com about some very practical ways that you can protect your Amazon account. This is a great article to give to clients, for example, who are Amazon users and need a good, simple explanation of how to secure your Amazon account. Talks about things like making sure your account recovery information is correct, not sharing your login information with anybody, and of course, regularly changing your password. All right. If the world of security was not scary enough, this story made me want to go lock myself into a dark room, because there is now an exploit that hackers are using to steal your passwords by listening to what you type. They can actually, with this exploit, they record what you're typing on your keyboard, and based on the way different keys sound and slightly different from each other in the frequency of sound, they can tell what you're typing with 95% accuracy. This is crazy, but this is actually happening in the wild today. This attack does not rely on any specific type or brand of keyboard, but mechanical keyboards and membrane keyboards are more susceptible. I mean, you can hear when you type, different keys have a slightly different sound than others, and hackers have figured out a way how to exploit that. Really, really crazy. The attack can be mitigated using silent keyboards, virtual keyboards, or noise cancellation techniques. I don't know what to say about this. This is just, it's 2023. We've got all these AI things coming out that we all love, but wow, the hackers are getting even more advanced. So if you want to just be completely terrified, read this article. on bleeping computer and yeah, learn more. Okay, another WordPress plugin that had a high severity vulnerability this month was Ninja Forms. This was a couple weeks ago. They released an update to patch multiple high severity security vulnerabilities. They were patched back on July the 4th. Ninja Form users have been urged to patch immediately, and but the vulnerability is not known to have been exploited. Just make sure you keep your plugins up to date, right? All right, let's move on into some news from Solid WP. Lots of things happening here with us. The Kadence Blocks 3.1 beta has been released, featuring that new advanced form block and other improvements. Also, the ability to rename your blocks in list view, which is by far my favorite addition to the Kadence Blocks 3.1. You can rename the actual block here, which I really like. You can, our products, value adds, I really like that. Very helpful. Kadence Blocks Pro 2.0 includes some additional structural updates and performance improvements that further make things more stable. Really good stuff. If you've not played around with this yet and you're a Kadence user, just spend a little time because the blocks are getting better. Upcoming products in the Kadence pipeline include Kadence AI, which is going to be amazing. Integration with Pexels for a free stock art library, as well as a repeater block for those of you who are using ACF along with Kadence. As always, we have a lot of premium events coming up here on iThemes Training. Every month we do a premium training event, which is a 2-day event for 4 hours, 2 hours each day around some topic that is helpful if you build and manage WordPress sites for others. This month is the second part of our SEO focus with Lindsay Halsey from Pathfinder SEO. It is the SEO Masterclass, and Lindsay's going to be talking about more advanced SEO information, as well as using AI in your SEO service for your clients. Pretty cool stuff. Next month, September 26th, 27th, we have the Google Analytics Bootcamp with David Zimmerman from Curious Ants. David's going to walk us through all the new Google Analytics 4 stuff, as well as I believe we're even going to get into some Google Tag Manager and Looker Studio work as well there in the Google Analytics Bootcamp. If you want to learn more about these and the details, just go right here to this link, to the premium courses link on iThemes Training. Again, this does require an iThemes Training membership, which I think is a great value. So take a look at that if you haven't already. Here's where we're heading for the rest of the year, October, November, December. You're stuck with me for these premium events. In October, it's going to be the WordPress AI workshop. None of these, by the way, have a registration page open yet. We'll get those up as time goes forward. The WordPress AI workshop, I'm starting to collect a really cool outline of how we're using AI technology in our agency to do some really fun things, and looking forward to sharing all that with you in October. And then November, December, as has been our habit for several years, it's all about the starter site. So November is creating your starter site. December, optimizing that starter site so you have a good standard theme and plugin stack from which you can build all of your client projects going forward. So that's where we're headed for the rest of the year in premium events. Some additional events coming up here for members. Fly 2023, talking about problem clients, is tomorrow. Office hours on Thursday as usual. The only live stream next week will be office hours on August 24th because I'll be away at WordCamp US. Then we have our SEO Masterclass. And then the Plugin Roundup is our next free webinar, which is on September the 5th. Yeah, so a lot of good stuff coming up in the fall here on iThemes Training. Let's talk about a little bit of plugin news. The plugin team has been going through some transitions as longtime plugin team member Mika Epstein has moved on to other things. They are tackling a backlog of over 900 plugins that have been waiting for approval as the team was being rebuilt. Plugins have been facing a waiting period of over 60 days from submission to actually inclusion in the WordPress directory. And they're making some progress. This is really good. The team has been focused on documenting processes, improving tools to provide a preliminary review, and then they'll go back and put eyes on it once all the issues that came up in the automated review have been dealt with. The new process has been designed to reduce that backlog, and community members are being encouraged to volunteer. So if this is something you're interested in and you have more of a developer focus and you'd like to spend some time donating some time to the plugin review team, they're asking for assistance. Also, I want to let you know that WooCommerce 8.0 was released with a lot of new features and some fixes. The introduction of jQuery 3 has been, or jQuery 3 support has been added to WooCommerce 8.0, as well as additional action hooks and extensibility for developers. They've also continued their work. They've been really focused on improving WooCommerce performance with optimized databasing queries, optimized caching methods. It's really desperately needed when it comes to WooCommerce. They've added some additional block templates, cart, checkout, order confirmation. All those have been added in WooCommerce blocks, as well as some new patterns or banners, different forms there. So a lot of good stuff there with WooCommerce 8. It is supposed to be totally backwards compatible, and we've not seen any issues in updating sites to WooCommerce 8. One more thing to mention in the plugin world is that there is a new member in the 1 million download club, and that is WP Data Tables. We really like WP Data Tables as an agency, and they are the newest member of the 1 million download club in the WordPress plugin world. So congrats to the folks there at WP Data Tables. All right, let's move over to some AI news. Wow, there's a lot of stuff happening in the AI world. If you're following AI news, then you probably saw that AI leaders have met with White House officials to commit to some basic safeguards around AI technology. That includes investing in cybersecurity, third-party vulnerability discovery, and flagging social risks, biases, and misuse. AI-generated content will also bear some sort of watermark. How that's happening is still fleshing out, but just so it'll be easier to detect what content is generated by AI and what content is, I almost said legitimate, what content is human generated. We'll say that. The agreement is currently voluntary, but lawmakers in the US are exploring bills to regulate AI, and I think that's a good thing. Here's something else you may have seen, and that is a new product called Zip WP. This is the combination of work from Brainstorm Force founder Sujay Pawar and WordPress content creator Adam Preiser. ZipWP is an AI tool that says they can create a WordPress site in 60 seconds after you provide some basic information about your business. It's not publicly available yet. There's a wait list at zipwp.com, but my goodness, this thing is really cool. So I've taken this video and really compressed the time down. So we've got this organization called Clean Waters. We're going to paste the name in. Now we're just going to give it a basic overview of what this organization is and paste it there. There's some other information you can add, but they're going to skip this step. And here it goes, building the site. We're going to speed this up to just past the 1 minute mark. And now we have a site. It took a minute to build this out of AI with content, just a paragraph of content, and it generated all this stuff. This is pretty amazing, I got to say. It threw in some stats. I mean, that's just all made up. You'd have to go put that in there. But multiple pages of a site, images were generated and dropped in there. This is pretty amazing, y'all. And this is really the first generation of AI technology. So to do this in a minute, pretty astounding. So if you've not yet seen Zip WP, take a look at that. They even include a SureCart link with a donation page. Yeah, pretty amazing. So give that a look. Sign up for the preview. Again, it's not publicly available yet, but there is a wait list. All right, moving right along to some news from OpenAI. They have now filed a trademark application for GPT-5. That is their latest iteration of the generative language model that powers ChatGPT. The application covers a wide range of software, as you can imagine. Additional features that were noted in the trademark application include converting audio to text and voice recognition. It's currently awaiting examination by the U.S. Trademark and Patent Office. There's a new class of, let's see. OpenAI is working on a new classifier to indicate that text is generated by AI. On July the 20th, OpenAI removed the old tool because it was only right about a quarter of the time. It wasn't very good, and they're looking into new techniques to provide more reliable AI detection before they release a new tool, which just makes sense. So maybe you've seen that tool out there, but it's only right 1 in 4 times. And it would flag false positives quite a bit. So there is not a reliable detection tool now for identifying AI generated text. Okay, Apple is also in the game. As you can imagine, Apple does not tend to be on the leading edge of technology. They tend to be on the second wave and then apply it in a way that is more usable for the average person. That's been the way Apple has operated for many years. But Apple is now developing an AI chatbot they are calling, it's being referred to by some as Apple GPT. That is not the official name from Apple. It would probably be something much more cool than that. Only a few Apple employees have access to it for now. The public release is expected next year. It is likely could reinvent Siri and other AI features on iPhones. Apple may be late to the game, but with its ecosystem, Apple GPT or whatever it's going to be called, will be out to millions of users in no time. So again, more AI means better stuff for us. The more companies are in the AI game, the better their products are going to get because the competitive marketplace will continue to advance the product options. Speaking of other AI, Bing Chat is now available in Chrome and Safari for some users. Previously, it was only available within Microsoft apps, but there is now an extension that will allow you to drop into your Chrome. So Bing Chat might have some constraints rather than using it natively in Edge. And listen, if you've not tried Bing Chat, it's pretty darn good. Install Microsoft Edge and it'll pop up over in the sidebar. I'd give it a look if I were you because it's pretty cool. Here's some other AI news. There's always so much AI stories going on. OpenAI, this is really great. If you are an OpenAI paid user and you have discovered the magic of GPT-4, then you probably realize that they have upped your limit from 25 messages to 50 within a 3-hour period. So that's really nice. I would expect us to see that limit continuing to increase. It's also a great article here from Rich Tabor, who's a longtime WordPress developer, on how to build a WordPress block using AI. There's a blog post and a YouTube video all about that. And it's y'all, it's not that hard to do. Take a look at Rich's tutorial. You'll be shocked. All right. This is my favorite story of the news roundup, and it comes with the question, will AI replace music artists? So maybe you saw a few months ago that we had a story about the Microsoft AI that could duplicate a voice or make a facsimile of someone's voice after only 6 or 8 seconds sample of that voice. Well, somebody has done something interesting, as the internet always does. And what they've done is they have created, using AI magic, Johnny Cash singing "I'm a Barbie Girl." So if you've not seen this, you're welcome.
Hello, I'm not Johnny Cash. I'm a Barbie girl in a Barbie world. Life in plastic, it's fantastic. You can brush my hair, undress me everywhere.
I'm just gonna let this play.
Come on, Barbie, let's go party, 'cause I'm in a Barbie world.
Can you believe this?
If you wanna be my lover, you gotta get with my friends. Make it last forever, friendship never ends. Up in my hands, up to play my song.
Unbelievable.
The butterflies fly away.
All right, so the YouTube link is right there on the page.
And
if you want to stay up with what's happening in AI, there's a great event from Human Made on September the 14th. It's a free event. This is the second in a series. AI, the next chapter. It is a free event, so you can register right there at the link on your screen. And there's also, if you're an AI genius, you can apply to speak at this next event. So check that out from Human Made, coming up in September. All right. Still trying to get over Johnny Cash, y'all. All right, let's move on to some other news, shall we? Interesting news out of the EU, the European Accessibility Act of 2025 might just apply to your website. The EU has passed new accessibility standards that will take effect in June of 2025 within the EU member states. The European Accessibility Act, or EAA, will require websites to comply with Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, or WCAG, AA level. So that is coming to EU in 2025. So if you are in the EU, or if you serve customers in the EU, or if you're in the US and your US customer does business in the EU, then you better start brushing up on accessibility, because it's going to be required for many businesses. So the EAA affects e-commerce sites and other online services to make sure that they're accessible for all users. Companies based outside the EU but selling to the EU should make sure that their sites are accessible. Micro enterprises are exempt, but accessibility can increase sales regardless of size, of course. And this is just something to get into and find the details of as this law fleshes out. So take a look at that. It's an opportunity, y'all, to do something really good on the web, make sites more accessible. And so you can learn accessibility and you can start applying that to all your builds, but also help others make their sites accessible as well. The U.S. Justice Department is also stepping into the accessibility mix. They are clarifying website accessibility standards. They've taken a bold step towards web and app accessibility. New technical standards will be developed to clarify what compliance means here in the U.S. as well under the Americans with Disabilities Act. These standards are at first only going to apply to government websites, but they'll signal how private businesses should comply. This was an announcement by someone at the DOJ, and there's a 60-day window currently open for the public to provide input. At the end of this, the Justice Department will issue some standards for government websites. But again, that will become the standard for all websites in the US. How that's going to apply and who it affects going forward, I'm not sure. But currently, this measure is just geared at government websites. Another interesting bit of other news comes out of the Search Engine Journal team. They did an experiment to see how the 4-day work week would work for them. So they tested that model that focused on operational excellence and maintaining 100% productivity while only working 4 8-hour days. So this whole approach is about looking at processes, getting rid of redundancies, getting rid of things that just waste time. So they're not going to work any more than 4 days, 32 hours a week, nor are they going to reduce workload. And what they discovered was that by moving to asynchronous meetings, Slack messages, video messaging, scheduling emails, they made it all work. They found that they could get rid of a lot of meetings, and it worked for them to do all the work that they were ready to do in 32 hours a week. Yeah, pretty interesting article. It's kind of an open door on how they adopted this 4-day work week strategy, what they learned. And look, there's stuff we can learn, even if you're a solopreneur or a micro agency owner. There's some things we can learn from this as well. The WordPress community team is exploring transition from Slack, which is currently the Make WordPress Slack channel, where all the WordPress people are and all the discussions about core WordPress take place. They're looking to transition from that tool over to Matrix. Now, Matrix is an open source chat system, and the WordPress team has created a bridge to push content from Slack over to Matrix. Now, the WordPress Matrix server is live now at community.wordpress.org, and it supports a single sign-on using your WordPress login. Direct messages and private chats are not available yet, but they've developed a new Gutenberg block to allow Matrix client embedding in WordPress. There's no word when or if Matrix is fully going to replace Slack, but that is certainly the direction they're heading. You can imagine how much that Slack channel costs WordPress with thousands of users every month, and they're paid, it's a paid account. That's a lot of money. So moving over to Matrix is interesting. We'll see where they go with that. Let's see. Vern, you wouldn't need a server for Matrix. WordPress would have a server. If you want to use Matrix on your own, you'd have to set it up yourself. Yes. Another WordPress tool that we've talked about here before, but now there is a learning tutorial about it, is the WordPress Playground. So we demonstrated WordPress Playground, I believe, in the July plugin roundup here on iThemes Training. Playground is an in-browser WordPress experience, runs completely in the browser, does not require a server. or a database server to operate. It makes it very easy to demonstrate WordPress or test plugins, spin up an instant test environment. It can run completely in the browser, or you can download the instance with a single click to your desktop or some local folder to just drop in plugins in the themes and plugins folders there. It is so fast to learn how to use, but they've added a new tutorial. It's about 10 minutes long on how to use WordPress Playground there at learn.wordpress.org. And if you haven't played with Playground yet, I would advise you to do that. Just take a look at it. It's a very powerful tool to quick test a couple of things, a couple of plugins, whatever you want in WordPress, literally instantly. Very cool. All right, here's another bit of SEO news. Google has now changed its how they're going to use FAQ and how-to schema. So the FAQ and how-to schema was something that SEO experts have been using very quietly to help to boost rankings for their clients. Because if you these are the answers to questions that appear at the very top when you do a Google search about some topic, and there's links back to certain sites. So Google on August the 8th has announced they will only be honoring FAQ schema in their rich search results for authoritative government and healthcare websites, which means that no longer will the average business or even small nonprofit, for example, be able to see their FAQ schema appear in those rich search results. It just simply will not be displayed. So Google is determining who qualifies this and not. And as usual, Google is not very transparent about what it's going to allow to show up there or not. So you don't have to change anything. If you're using this strategy, you don't have to change anything. It's just not going to appear at those top level rich search results anymore. So, I mean, the thing is, ultimately, this is a good thing because we want trustworthy results to show up there and not just, you know, somebody's blog that has an opinion about something showing up as an answer to a question. So that's what Google is after in the big picture. I kind of agree with it, but yeah, if you're using this, it's definitely going to affect your SEO strategy. The update is rolling out globally in all languages this week across all of the Google. Google says this shouldn't be considered a rankings change. Okay, and it's not going to be listed in the search status dashboard as you look at your search console. All right, the controversial giant X logo has been removed from X's headquarters, formerly known as Twitter. Twitter removed that giant flashing logo from their San Francisco headquarters due to safety complaints just 3 days after it was erected last month. The notorious logo had this strobe lighting that was incredibly bright. X twice blocked San Francisco building inspectors from access to the structure, which they had installed without a permit. This is what it looked like. It was just very, very bright. Imagine living next door to this thing. Supposedly, it was a temporary structure and was only secured by sandbags at its base. So the giant X is gone, and we can all move on with our lives. All right, as we get into some of the next versions of the next phases of Project Gutenberg, which move into translations, analysis by the core team has shown that translations significantly slow WordPress sites. The WordPress performance team has done a study that shows that WordPress sites that use translations can be up to 50% slower than WordPress sites that do not use translation. About 50% of WordPress sites that use translations are affected by these performance issues. 6 solutions were identified to help, including different file formats, different caching. The performance team plans to test possible solutions like revamping the translations parser in core WordPress and a new PHP translation file format. The goal being, let's speed this thing up. It's a global community. Multilingual WordPress is a thing. Testing is happening on a wider scale through the Performance Lab feature plugin. Link for that is down in the footer of this slide. The full look at multilingual support in WordPress is the primary focus of phase 4 of Project Gutenberg. If you're talking to clients and they ask you why WordPress, here's a great article from Rich Tabor, the developer we mentioned, who has the great approach to building AI blocks with building blocks with AI earlier. Rich Tabor, longtime WordPress developer. He's got a great article here that is excellent case for maybe repurposing a bit as you're talking to clients for very important reasons why WordPress. It's open source, plugin library, versatile. It could be, WordPress can be anything, and it's secure with 50 experts focusing on issues that need to be resolved. So good take there. There's a lot more detail in the article, and it's a good spot to start for answering client questions about why should I choose WordPress. NASA is, they are launching a new website. It's currently at beta.nasa.gov, but it is built in WordPress. Yet another reason to choose WordPress. NASA did. Pretty cool. The WP Awards 2023 nominations are now open. This is the awards presentation from the WP Weekly email newsletter, which is a great email newsletter. If you're not getting that, sign up for that at the WPweekly.com. They are set to return with an online event on December the 11th. Nominations are open for all kinds of WordPress-based products and services. They opened a couple weeks ago, and they're open through the middle of September. And then voting, once the nominations have come in, will be open from October through November. Winners announced December 11th on that live stream event. Submissions, of course, don't guarantee nominations. It just depends on the voting. All right, another bit of news that hit last weekend was yet another Zoom privacy controversy, this one revolving around Zoom AI. Zoom has updated its terms of service after a controversy erupted earlier this month surrounding recent changes about its AI technology. The terms of use that you agree to when you use Zoom give them rights to use customer content for machine learning, artificial intelligence training, testing, and a variety of other product and development purposes. Customer content includes your video of your calls, audio of your calls, and your chat transcripts. So that update, an update was made last week that added a new clause. Notwithstanding anything that we just said, Zoom will not use any of this without your consent. So you're granting them, it's just, this is lawyers got into a room. I mean, that's the only explanation. You're granting us access to all of your things, but we promise not to use them without asking you. So do what you will with that. Concern still remains over what has been called service-generated data, which Zoom can still use to train its AI. Zoom has a number of different privacy concerns in the past that privacy watchdogs are just kind of waiting to see where where things land on this. Definitely a story to watch. All right, let's talk about news that is worth a look. Just a few things that we saw that didn't quite fit any place else. First, here's 6 great examples of using Google Bard, Google's AI, with image recognition. Pretty cool stuff there. Google has released 10 free courses to master AI. Pretty good stuff there as well. A couple of nice Twitter links. 7 top tips to become a Google Analytics 4 Pro. Great article there from Search Engine Journal, or you can just come in September and learn it straight from the master. And that is David Zimmerman here on the Google Analytics Bootcamp on iThemes Training. And last of all, good article from the iThemes blog about creating a shipping policy. If you have an e-commerce store, great blog article on what you might include in a shipping policy. All right, we're going to wrap up as we usually do with WordPress community news. There's a bunch of upcoming U.S. WordCamps. The WordCamp Community Summit in Washington, D.C., actually Maryland, right across the river from D.C., is coming up next week, August 22nd and 23rd, and WordCamp US, August 24th and through the 26th. I'll be there for all of that, so make sure you look me up if you're going to be there. Also, WordCamp Omaha in Nebraska is coming October 14th and 15th, and WordCamp Atlanta, same weekend, October 14th and 15th. I'll be there at WordCamp Atlanta. And again, if you're going to be there, make sure you look me up. I'd love to meet you. Upcoming WordCamps around the world, WordCamp Nairobi is this happening today. So I hope those folks have a great camp for the next few days there in Jinja, Nairobi. Actually, these links are inverted. It's Nairobi, link goes here, Jinja goes here. The Uganda WordCamp is coming up September 4th and 5th. And last but not least, we've been talking about this. The WordPress Accessibility Day is coming September 27th and 28th. And if you want to learn about accessibility and making sites more accessible to users with disabilities in WordPress, great event on September 27th and 28th. The 24-hour event. It is free, but registration is required. Take a look there at 2023.wpaccessibility.day. And that, folks, wraps us up for the WordPress News Roundup of August 2023. Thanks for hanging out with me for the last hour or so. Hopefully you found some things that are interesting. Click some of those links, learn some more. I'm back tomorrow for members with the Fly course, talking all about problem clients, and then office hours on Thursday. Until then, have a great rest of the day. See you back here tomorrow on iThemes Training, where we go further together.